note as to why that's happening with that particular meditation, where we are doing meditations deliberately that are exactly the same as what Jord went through accidentally. So sitting down each day and recognizing and disidentifying from, recognizing I'm not that, disidentifying from the different aspects of our human experience that we would usually identify with. And it's such a powerful setup for a meditation to sit behind the body, sit behind the mind, sit behind the senses, sit behind the ego, and rest in spaciousness, that we have a real lived and felt experience of something more vast and something more wonderful, something more effortlessly peaceful. It's not something you have to try, effortlessly peaceful, a return home. And that state is so powerful that it imprints itself on the psyche because it feels so familiar. Even though it's like different, there's a realization that I know this is me, this is home. That awakening imprints itself powerfully on the psyche. So what happens then, right, is the body is a printout of our consciousness state. You imagine that your consciousness is like a 3D printer, and whatever state of consciousness you're in prints your body. Your body is a massive cells and subatomic particles that are all vibrating in perfect reflection of whatever your state of consciousness is. And we see this when you have a certain thought, it creates biochemicals in your brain that ripple through your nervous system as neuropeptides that erupt as emotions, and your body starts to shape itself as a result of whatever those particular biochemicals are. The body is a printout of consciousness. And so all of a sudden, you start to get this imprint of a deeper level of consciousness. And your body and consciousness have this little momentary, temporary stage of discord where the body is still the printout of the past, who you were, the stories, the experiences, the stresses, all the things that have happened over the process of your life, because emotions and experiences are also stored in the cells of your body. But then there's this new experience of effortless peace. And so the new consciousness is starting to try to print itself out through the psyche, through the nervous system, through the body. And as it does that, it kind of crowds out and pushes to the forefront all of the old stories and the old problems, the old ways of being that no longer suit the new consciousness state. And so the way we experience this psychologically is things that were subconscious, meaning they were there, but we weren't aware of them consciously, start to emerge and arise into consciousness. And that's when we have a temporary moment of falling apart before we feel better than we ever had before. And so it's an unfortunate part of a very fortunate process.
Yeah, I think if I may step in here, like, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know anything about the training, but it probably comes with a lot of fear for people as well, because deconstructing, letting go of that identity comes with tremendous fear, because that identity has been a survival mechanism, survival strategy. Like if you are the people pleaser or the perfectionist or that entrepreneur, that gave you a certain sense of safety. So letting go of that safety is also like, well, this is going to be scary, because once we develop that identity in order to protect ourselves from the rejection of the authentic self, otherwise it would have already been there. So I can imagine that for people who go through that process, that it's like tremendously scary.
Everyone was crying like last session. It was like super, like we were all going through our own processes, and it's so beautiful to see that like stuff like this can really, really shape us in such a beautiful way. And I think it, like you said, it's almost like the experience or the limited or the false self or whatever you want to call it, has to come up again for it to arise, for us to be like, oh, that's still there for me to integrate, or I haven't been able to navigate that experience yet. And I think that's something that I really, love about this process of even just what I've learned from you is like bringing safety into my body when I felt like unsafe in certain situations. And obviously meditation for me has helped me do that, because it's bringing that conscious awareness to the breath, to the body, and it's connecting back to that kind of state of beingness that, and often when I'm, distracted or doing too many things on my phone, I don't, I lose that connection to that peacefulness and the stability. So it's easier for us to find it if we can cultivate it through, certain practices.
Mm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and what comes alive here, what you just said, it's probably, I see it a lot with my clients and I've experienced myself as well, is like the next step is once we start to admit it's the fear, but after the fear, it's once we actually, like, we know when we connect to that authentic feeling, because the body still knows. It's like, it's that deep knowing, like, this is who I am. But it comes with a lot of grief as well. Like some people feel like they have lost 20, sometimes 30 years of their lives pretending to be somebody else. Oh, I've messed up all these relationships because of this. And that can be super painful for people.
For sure.
So it's not always a nice process to go through, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and it's cool just to understand it too. Like even in Ayurvedic healing, the thing that is said is patients are going to temporarily experience a deeper state of discomfort before they get better than they were before.
Yeah.
And that's because